Behind me are two gaming computers from PhynixPC. They reached out asking if I was interested in checking them out, and due to the history that they have as well as their origin story behind their company, they definitely caught my interest. Without going into a ton of details, PhynixPC is an employee-owned company that was formed by ex-employees of Artesian Builds. I won't go over the whole Artesian controversy since I feel like it's pretty well known by this point, but in a nutshell, Artesian Builds was a system integrator that went bankrupt mainly due to the poor choices made by the former CEO, resulting in everyone at the company losing their jobs. But that's not the point of this video. In this video, I want to take a look at their systems and give you my thoughts. As a brand new company, they have seen quite a bit of initial support from the PC community on social media, but how much of that is due to their past and their origin story, and how much of that is actually due to what value they're actually bringing to the table for PC gamers? So let's find out. Let's start by getting these unboxed. We have the Harpy system here in the smaller box, and then the Syren system in this bigger box. So this is their most entry-level system, and then this is more like a mid-tier system. So I'm going to move this one out of the way, and we're going to start with the smaller box first with the Harpy. This is double box. They did a pretty good job of packing everything pretty tight so nothing is shifting around. So right off the bat, we do have kind of like a quick start guide, 3 pages worth of information. This is mainly going to be for first-time PC buyers. It has useful diagrams like this one because a lot of first-time users, they'll just plug in their display cable to whatever looks like it fits, and they may plug into the motherboard instead of the graphics card. So yeah, something like this is very good to see. It just has all the information to help someone get out and started. We do have the original boxes for everything it looks like. So here's the power supply box. This is gonna have a processor box with the stock heatsink in here. So they still give you that. I haven't seen a lot of pre-built companies do this. A lot of times they'll send at max like maybe the motherboard to have a little bit of accessories with it. But I've not seen other companies do this where they essentially give you everything as if you were to build this yourself, and then you have all the leftover boxes as well as things like the stock heatsink. So in this system, it is a 1660 Super as well as an i3 12100F, 16 gigabytes of RAM, and I'll have the rest of the specs shown on the screen. So let me get this out of the way. And here is the build itself in the original box that came with the case. Alright, so here we have the system. So we do have 2 Instapacks in here, the expanding foam, so that's just going to make sure that the tower cooler as well as the graphics card and anything else in there is nice and snug so that it doesn't have a chance to rip off of the motherboard and get damaged during transportation. So let's open this up. Alright, so here is the first system. Everything seems to have come in one piece. We'll definitely have to test that by turning it on later, but I'm just going to move this out of the way so I can unbox the other system. Alright, next up is this much larger box. The other one was noticeably smaller because it was a micro ATX system. This one's going to be a mid-tower, so the case is bigger and then the overall box is just going to be bigger because of that. So let's get this opened up. Yeah, this box is 50 pounds. It's 26 by 26 by 20, so we'll talk about shipping and all that later. I'm curious to hear, let me know in the comments, would you care if you bought a system from a pre-built company if they sent you the boxes so that you could keep all the boxes and have it for yourself? They have a ton of foam and padding in here. So similarly, we have all the included boxes in here. And then we got the 3060 Ti, which is what this system has in it. This system is for the most part a 12400F, 3060 Ti, 1 terabyte of SSD storage, 32 gigabytes of RAM on this one. Look how much extra space they had around this when shipping out. So this is how much bigger this secondary box is compared to this little one. which in terms of like protecting it is great, as well as you getting all the boxes if that's your thing. But again, that is going to be reflected in the shipping cost because it is that much bigger it's going to cost more to ship this out than compared to a box that was like shallower. Three Instapacks in here. So there's first one, there's AIO tubes here that this got behind, but comes right out. And then the last one. For the most part, it looks like everything came in good physical condition, which I'm not surprised. I think they did a phenomenal job with the packing. I mean, you got double box, you got plenty of space, you know, all around the case with either foam or airbags or bubble wrap. The Instapack on the inside, they didn't spare any expense with that. They made sure it was fully filled. They didn't try to just like try to skimp by with just one Instapack per PC. So yeah, I do have to commend them for that. But let me get these two systems stood up now, and we'll take an actual more detailed look at the inside. Alright, so we're first going to take a look at the Harpy in closer detail. And we're going to look at the main chamber first. So I'll accompany this with B-roll so that I can get way more detailed shots. But focusing on the cable management for the most part, as well as making sure everything looks to be fully seated. The main chamber is looking very clean in terms of routing of the cables and the cutouts that they chose to use when it came to plugging everything into the motherboard. All the cables are for the most part pulled taut. Looks good on the main chamber, so let's look at behind the motherboard tray. Alright, so this is what the backside looks like. I think they did a really good job on this one, considering this is a more budget case. It doesn't have a ton of features and options, like it doesn't have, you know, cable raceways to hide things and to route cables as much, but they made it look really clean. This case is great in terms of like the main features, such as like, you know, airflow in the front, as well as the hinged tempered glass design, power supply basement, things like that. But for the cable management, it is kind of lacking in the back in terms of the features of the case, but the PhynixPC team did a really good job. Like, I'll show the B-roll of it, but one thing that I do like is that they do have one of the SATA cables plugged into the motherboard. So if anyone wanted to, down the line, put in a SATA hard drive, that cable is already set up for them. That's kind of a nice touch for people who aren't super experience with PC building. It'll be one less step for them to have to do when they eventually upgrade or add more storage. Yeah, other than that, I don't have much else to say on the backside of this one. Just overall cable management, front and backside, very clean on their Harpy system. That's enough for the Harpy system. Let's take a look at the Syren. So let's take that out, and man, I love that both of these cases that they chose for these configurations have these hinged tempered glass designs. It makes it so much easier, both as an experience or if someone inexperienced was, you know, wanting to open up their PC case. So first thing I'm going to point out in this case is we got a mid-sized tower and a micro ATX motherboard in it. So you do have this gap of space underneath it. I don't know how big of a deal this is for other people. For me, it's not a complete deal breaker. Could have been because they got maybe good deals on these motherboards, or I know both of these PCs do have Wi-Fi. If this motherboard just happened to have the feature set at the price point that they were looking at when, you know, configuring this, then so be it. But just wanted to point that out. Taking a look at this main chamber, very similar to the Harpy. Cable management is done very well. Everything is pulled nice and taut. All the cables are coming out of the expected cutouts in the case for what looks to be the best routing options and the options that I would have chosen if I were to assemble this. One thing I am noticing though is that they installed the M.2 NVMe SSD at this slot down here on the bottom right of the motherboard, when there's the one slightly above the graphics card with the heatsink. I'm not sure why they didn't want to install that there. For someone like me, it's not a big deal for me to take this out and put it there, but a person who's not comfortable with handling computers, they probably wouldn't want to switch the slot themselves. Other than that though, very clean cable management. Let's take a look at the rear side. Alright, so in terms of their ability to cable manage, I think they did a really good job here. Plenty of zip ties used, plenty of Velcro straps used. Everything is looking pretty clean. They also included one SATA cable being plugged in. So again, if you want to do like a hard drive or a 2.5-inch SSD upgrade down the line, the cables are going to be routed and ready for you to go. It's very clear that they have a very experienced team that is able to put together very clean builds, whether it's a more entry-level build or something a little bit higher end with AIOs and more RGB fans and things like that. So now onto the fun part. We get to turn these on. So let me get my monitors and keyboards and stuff like that set up, and then we'll take a look at the systems, you know, in the BIOS as well as in Windows and all of that. So we'll go with the Harpy first. And everything seems to be good to go. And then we have the Syren. And all the RGB fans are on. They're spinning. Do you hear that right now? That's the fan noise coming from the Harpy. For me, I can easily go into the BIOS, which we're going to do in a little bit here, and turn down the fans. But for a new customer, getting a new PC, hooking it up, and then turning it on to this much fan noise, I think this definitely needs to be addressed. So yeah, I'm going to go into the BIOS and see if I can get that figured out, as well as look at the rest of the BIOS. Alright, so I'm in the BIOS, and I haven't touched anything yet, and in the BIOS, the fans are actually not running as fast as when it was in Windows. So take a listen to the difference between now versus earlier. So yeah, I'm going to go into the fan control and see what it's set to for the CPU and chassis fans. They're all set to standard. That was very aggressive for standard for how loud that was. Set it to silence and see if that helps anything. In terms of the XMP profiles, there's a 3000 megahertz as well as a 3200 megahertz. So that was what was enabled. So that's good to see. So I like that. And then the last thing I'm going to take a look at, which I don't think is a huge deal, we'll go back to easy mode, is going to be the BIOS version. Now, I'm of the camp of if the BIOS ain't broke, don't fix it, because you could end up causing more trouble if anything goes wrong during the BIOS update. But I'm just curious in terms of the BIOS version for this. This is 1603, so I'm going to take a quick look online and see what the latest version is. The 1603 is the second to the newest BIOS, and there was one very recently. So by the time they built the system and sent it out, I think they did have the latest BIOS. We're going to go into Windows now and take a look at Bloatware. And the fans are ramping back up speed again. Actually, now that I take a closer listen, the sound's coming more from the graphics card. So the graphics card is running at full speed. I need to quickly do something to see if I can turn those down or if it's a defective card. So we have MSI Afterburner installed. According to this, the fan speed is set to auto and it's only running at 41%. Let me set it to manual. Actually set it to 100%, and that changes nothing. So now let me go down to 41 and apply. Nothing. So I'm going to shut the system down and see if I could reseat the connector and maybe reseat the fan connector on the board of the card. Reseat everything just to make sure. When the system first starts up, like either it's in BIOS or while it's still going through, you know, and then right when you get into Windows, it just goes to max speed. I want to see if updating the drivers does anything. Actually, let's take a look at what driver version is on here right now. So 516.94. So let's take a look at the drivers for the 1660 Super. 516.94. So the good thing is that PhynixPC updated the drivers to the latest ones, but the bad thing is that I can't control the fan speed. It does seem to be otherwise operating normally. I mean, the temperatures, there's nothing crazy going on with this. It's still putting a display out, so when we stress test it, we're going to have to figure that out. There's two more things I'm going to try. One is I'm going to try a different driver version, so I'll completely wipe the driver using DDU and then reinstall this driver, and if not, like an older version. And if those two doesn't work, then I'm going to try to see if it's something with the VBIOS, see if I can install a different VBIOS on it. And if that doesn't work, then it's going to be the card. Alright, so I just ran DDU, and while in Windows before it shut down, the graphics card fan speed actually ramped down. Getting rid of the drivers, the fan speeds weren't running at 100% anymore. So we're back in. As you can see, the resolution is pretty weird right now, but we're back in Windows. The graphics card is, you know, it has a display out, it's working. and it is practically silent. But it seems like we figured out the problem, and we're going to get the drivers back on here. I think it automatically detected the video drivers, and the fan kicked back on to 100%. Yeah, this is really strange. Like, if you look at the driver version now, this is a different driver version. 457.51. Still can't control the fan speed. It's still going at 100%. Yeah, I'm actually not too confident that the new ones that I'm downloading, I don't think they're going to make a difference. So I tried multiple driver versions, that did not work, so now I'm going to try updating the VBIOS, or not updating, but changing it rather. Since we already have the Harpy booted up, let's take a look at everything on the Windows side of things, just to make sure it's all good to go. So we have their company logo here on the desktop. Other than that though, it looks like they did install Google Chrome, and as we saw, the graphics card drivers were updated. So we do have Armory Crate for the motherboard, RGB software in here, but other than that, everything else looks like it is default Windows, so that's good. They keep it pretty clean. We do see that we have Windows 10 Pro here, and it is indeed activated. Pretty happy with the bloatware and everything going on here, minus a little graphics card debacle. We'll get that figured out. But yeah, this thing is running like a jet engine. It is so loud. I'm going to shut it down now, and then we'll get over to the Syren PC. Alright, so we're in the BIOS of the Syren, and we can see pretty much everything here from the easy mode screen. So we do have XMP enabled. The BIOS version is the same as what the Harpy had, so it was as updated as possible prior to them sending it out. And we're going to go check out inside Windows again, and this should be much smoother because I don't hear any fan issues. We're seeing very similar things to the Harpy. We got their logo on the desktop. In terms of bloatware, same thing. It's the same motherboard, so you have your Asus Armory Crate as well as all the RGB software that is needed. Other than that though, aside from GeForce Experience and them installing Google Chrome, I'm not seeing anything that is considered bloatware, so that's good. And we do have the Windows 10 Pro and activated with digital license. So in terms of the Windows side of things, bloatware wise, that looks good. Let's check out the graphics drivers for this. 516.94, yep, that is the most up-to-date version. So the next thing I want to do is stress test these two systems. I want to run it under load just to make sure that stability wise there's nothing wrong, the system doesn't crash or anything like that, as well as to check the temperatures. But before I do that for the Harpy, I need to figure out what is wrong with the card. Alright, so update on the situation. I got into contact with PhynixPC customer support, and I let them know that the fan was running at max speed, and I've already tried a few things like completely wiping the drivers and trying different driver versions, as well as swapping out the VBIOS. So they also gave me some other suggestions to try. So they said like maybe try clearing CMOS, maybe trying a fresh Windows install just in case it's something on the Windows side of things or OS, as well as changing out the cables and reseating it, maybe trying like a different modular cable from the box. So I did all of that and nothing works. So they basically concluded that there is something wrong with the card. In MSI Afterburner, they asked me to take a look at the fan tachometer, and that was reading 0 RPM. So they're thinking it's something with either the fan controller or the fan speed sensor. They sent me a shipping label, so I'm gonna send the card back and they're gonna send replacement. I do want to still stress test both of these. We can still stress test the Harpy just to see how the CPU cooler was installed and still check stability. The card seems to work. So what I'm going to do is put Prime 95 as well as Furmark on these systems and run them to check out the temperatures and the stability. So first up we have the Syren system. I have Prime 95 running and Furmark as well. So for Prime 95, I'm doing a blended test just because that loads up everything, CPU and system memory. Pretty much running almost at full load at 100%, and the system memory goes anywhere between, looks like it's at almost 28 gigabytes up to 32. So this has been running about 15 minutes, so temperatures for the most part has stabilized. It's not really going any higher or lower than this, maybe by a couple of degrees. But noise levels This system isn't running crazy loud. It's not like a jet engine. We can see here in MSI Afterburner that the fan speed is set to automatic and it's not going over 60%. So everything is looking good here. This isn't long enough to actually know the stability, so what I will be doing is running this overnight. But for a quick 15-minute test until the temperatures pretty much max out, we're below 70 on both the GPU and CPU under like a really high load. This is pretty much like the worst case scenario. Alright, so now we have the Harpy system, which is blasting away at 100% max fan speed. The graphics card, as it's showing here, is able to run an intense stress test without any issues. The graphics card is running pretty cool, 60 degrees, not really moving much from there, obviously because the fan's running at max speed. But the CPU, it's below 70, so as you can see here, graphics card's running at full load, so is the CPU. We do have Prime 95 on the back, and that's why all the threads are pretty much maxed out at 100. So yeah, everything for both these systems, from what I can see so far in like this first 15-minute stress test, is looking good in terms of the installation. Stability wise, I gotta let both these run for at least 12, if not more hours, and then I'll actually edit onto the screen the results of that, whether or not like these crash or have any issues, or if they run them perfectly. From what I can see for both these systems, I see no glaring issues with how it was put together and how they run, aside from the defective 1660 Super, which we're going to be taking care of and getting a replacement. So now let's talk about pricing, everyone's favorite part. So we're going to take a look at the pricing of the two systems that they did send over, as well as the ones that they didn't. So they do have 4 systems available right now: the Harpy, Syren, Griffin, and Wyvern. And the price goes anywhere from $880 to $3,300. We're going to take a look at these and compare them to what PC Part Picker has if a consumer were to pick up the parts, so that we can figure out, you know, what they charge for the labor, warranty, and customer service. So let's start out with the Harpy. So this one is an $880 build, and here's all the parts that they use in it. They don't give details to everything, like if you look at the memory, they don't put the exact brand of it, same with the storage and the video card and all of that. And that's so that they can stay flexible, but because they did send the system over, I do know exactly what brand of every part they have is. So we're going to take a look at that, and I've made a PC Part Picker list for all the builds actually. But we're going to take a look at this Harpy first. So I have filled this out with the exact parts that they've used in the build. So it's the Kingston Fury Beast RAM, the Kingston NB1 SSD, and it's the 1660 Super Ventus. I know there's some parts on here that there's probably slightly cheaper components from other brands from. Like memory right now, you can usually get 16 gigabytes for $50, but they're using the Kingston Fury Beast, which is a little bit more expensive, $15 more, as well as say like the power supply. You can probably find a 650 watt gold power supply for a little bit less than $90. But just to be fair, I'm just using exactly what they sent over. There's tons of combinations of parts that are similar that you can put together for maybe a little bit cheaper, but I don't think it's going to make a drastic difference. For the Windows key, I did end up using a $15 key. I don't know how much they spend on Windows keys, but anyone building their own system, for the most part, is either using unactivated Windows, a gray market key, or they're just going to straight up pirate it. So I'm going to put a $15 key here. I don't think putting a $100 key would be very representative or good for the comparison, but that's just me. If you don't like that, you can swap the numbers out while we're doing this and use the higher number if you assume like a $100 key. But yeah, this build comes into $823. So if we look at the price difference between what they're charging, $880, then we're only looking at like a $60 to $65 charge on the labor, which includes customer service and warranty. And for them, they have a 2-year warranty according to their warranty policy, and that's on parts and labor. So I think that's actually really good. Even if you did take off some for like using a slightly cheaper power supply if you built yourself, or some RAM, they're still coming in well under $100 for the Harpy. So I really like this. I think this is priced very well. Next, we're going to go to the Syren. So the Syren comes in at $1,500. For what the parts cost right now, I'm seeing $1,307 from PC Part Picker, and again, this is using the exact same parts that they're using in the build. We're looking at a build fee of roughly $200, so $1,500 here compared to $1,307 here. We're just gonna round it and say $200 build fee. It is starting to get to the higher end and the upper limit of what I would personally recommend. There's definitely a lot of other companies out there charging more than $200 for the build, depending on the tier of it. But there are also a number of companies that are charging less than $200 for the build fee. Just off the top of my head, looking at something like NZXT, Build Redux, they charge a little bit less than that. Those are, you know, a lot bigger companies. PhynixPC is it's a small company and they're just starting out. So I would say that if they could lower it maybe $50 to make the build fee $150, it would put them at a more competitive position. Because why would someone go with PhynixPC? They're a newer company. You don't know if they're going to be around forever. Why would they go with that if NZXT also has a system that can be spec'd out like this for a little bit cheaper? By the way, I'm just using NZXT as an example. I'm not sponsored by them and I have no bias towards them. It's just because I have the tab up here and that's the first one I chose that I know has a pretty low build fee. But in summary, you know, this isn't alarming at all. This isn't something that you will raise your pitchforks for and say they're totally ripping customers off like we've seen with some other companies. So this is fine, but I'm just saying to be more competitive, maybe lower the price a little bit. So that gets through both of the systems that they sent over. Price-wise, nothing alarming. But now we're going to get into the Griffin and the Wyvern, which they didn't send. So what I had to do there, we'll go to the Griffin, which starts at $2,400. And we're going to take a look at the parts list. Again, the RAM and the SSD and things like that and the power supply are not specified, but I did choose it based on what I think that they would use based on what we've seen in these two systems here. Now, this is going to be slightly a more like intensive build to put together. You do have a 360 AIO, you do have additional fans that they put in here, so it's going to take a little bit more time to put this together than the other two builds. But what I got for the total in the parts is $1,900 and their price is $2,400. So now we've taken a pretty big jump to a $500 build fee. To me, that's pretty expensive. At this point, if I knew someone who had a budget of $2,500, I would tell them to look elsewhere. I would say my cap is probably $300. I don't care how good you are at putting systems together. I don't care if you know, live stream these builds. Anything above $300 I think is a little excessive. You're looking at a $2,400 system with a $500 build fee, 20% of the cost of the entire system in the labor alone. Hopefully they go back and reevaluate this. I just think this is overpriced to get $1,900 worth of parts and to pay $500 for labor, warranty, and customer service. And last up, we're going to have the Wyvern, which they still need to get a product image for. And this is going to be a $3,300 system. We're looking at like basically a top of the line system, like an i9. It's got more premium parts. So like the other ones, we're using like a B-True cooler, which are very inexpensive. Like this one's 360 millimeter for $100. Over here, we have a 360 millimeter for $260. So, you know, they're using Corsair fans, Corsair AIO. That's what you do once you start to get to the premium and you start using the more premium big box brands of stuff. Pretty much a top of the line system, i9 processor, Z690 board, 32 gigs of RAM. They are putting a 3080 Ti in here, O11 dynamic Evo case, 1000 watt power supply. Very, very nice system. So the total of this build on PC Power Picker would be $2,625 about. So we take a look at their price of $3,300. That's a little bit under $700, like $675 for the build fee. So the build fee, as we're seeing, is going up from the Harpy being like less than $100 build fee to the Syren that's $200 to the Griffin that's about $500, and now we're at $675. I understand that it's an over $3,000 PC, but again, like the labor is not worth 3 times as much as it is to put together like a Syren. It doesn't take 3 times as long to put together. I definitely think they need to cap the labor costs at no more than say like 300, maybe 350. But again, at that point, the more you start charging for that, you're becoming less competitive than other companies out there. And as a new company, you need to get more customers in the door using your products, spreading word of mouth first before, you know, you build that brand reputation where you can justify charging more. So yeah, in summary here, the Harpy and the Syren I could, you know, recommend to other people, but the Griffin and the Wyvern, that labor cost is just way too high in my personal opinion. It could have been that they spent more than $900 because they bought this 3080 Ti a while back when the prices were still bad and they weren't ever able to move it. But honestly, I don't think that's a valid excuse. It's not on the customers to dig a company out of the hole because of their, poor decisions essentially. All right, now I want to talk about one last thing regarding like price or money, and that's going to be with the shipping, because it's a big package, it's a heavy package, and it's a real cost that you have to consider in the overall cost when you're comparing between different companies. So for the Phoenix Harpy, on their website, shipping it from them to me, it's over $100 in shipping costs. I don't know why it costs that much, because using discounted shipping, which they should be using if they're, selling these many systems, this is a rate that I could get using pirate ship, putting the exact same dimensions of the package and the weight and shipping it from the same cities. I was coming up with $64 using UPS as well. So I don't know why they charge about $40 more on the shipping side of things, but I think that is overpriced. A $40 difference is not an insignificant amount. That's enough to say upgrade from that 500 gigabyte SSD to like a 1 terabyte one, or to like double the RAM capacity from 16 gigabytes to 32 gigabytes. So the additional $40 and why it costs so much to ship that out when I was able to, as like an individual, find cheaper rates than that, I don't know what's up with that. So I hope they look into this and lower that shipping price. I don't expect shipping to be free because, they are a smaller company. There are some SIs out there that do provide free shipping. I'll show it on the screen. But if you look at most of them, they usually do charge shipping, and it's anywhere usually around like 50 to 60 bucks across all the ones that I looked at. But yeah, 100 is just way too much. Now for the Syren, because that was a much bigger box, that one was 50 pounds. The cheapest rates that I could find for the Syren for all the same parameters, weight, size, same cities, with insurance, with signature and everything, that came out to a little bit over $100 for me, and they're charging like $111. So I'll give them a pass on that because they are using all these other packing material and stuff like that too. So yeah, something is up with the Harpy. You shouldn't be paying $100 shipping on that. If you're in the market for a fully built PC and you're doing these comparisons side by side with all the different companies, do not forget to compare the final price at the end in the cart after shipping is accounted for. That's all I have to say about the pricing. Let's wrap this video up now. Overall, I like what I'm seeing from Phoenix PC. Their systems are built well, and their customer support team was very prompt with the troubleshooting, and then eventually coming up with the solution of sending a return label for the graphics card. I didn't see any glaring issues where I tell people to avoid them as a company at all costs, so that's good. My biggest criticisms are definitely related to their pricing, which can easily be fixed. First is with the shipping on the Harpy PC. It shouldn't have been anywhere near $100 given the size and weight of the box and where it's being shipped to and from, so they definitely need to address that. For the systems themselves, I think the higher end Griffin and Weber need a price reduction so that they can be more competitive. As a very new company, they need to give customers a strong reason to choose them. Otherwise, why would anyone bother when there's literally tons of other options out there available with the longer track record at the same, if not a lower price. Sure, they do live builds on stream, but more and more companies are starting to do that as well, so it's not as unique anymore. And their builders are actually very experienced, I'll give them that, and they do a very good job with the assembly and the setup, and they had good small touches here and there, but at the end of the day, a lot of pre-built companies do a decent job in that area too, and it's definitely not worth paying hundreds of extra dollars for slightly tidier cable management or slightly tweaked BIOS settings. So I think most people just care about pricing and the specs first and foremost, and you can charge a little bit extra for all the other things, but not that much extra. But yeah, those are my thoughts on it. I'm very curious to hear what you all think. Let me know what your thoughts are on Phoenix PC based on what I covered in this video, as well as what you see when you go to their website. And please, before leaving any comments, think about this in terms of a customer that has zero interest in building themselves for one reason or another. I don't want to hear like any snobby elitists leaving comments about how everyone should just learn to build their own first PC. That's not helpful, and honestly, I find it super annoying when people are very ignorant to the fact that pre-built PCs are a reason that a lot of people eventually go on to become enthusiasts and self-builders themselves. But yeah, I definitely look forward to reading what you all think, and I'm sure Phoenix PC will eventually watch this video as well as respond to some of the things I had to say. So I look forward to hearing from them as well. That's gonna wrap it up for this video though. Hope you enjoyed and found this either useful or entertaining in one way or another. I want to thank you all as always for watching and for continuing to support the channel. Huge shout out to the channel members for their above and beyond support as always. Be safe out there, and I'll see y'all down in the comments as well as the next stream and or video. Bye.